Hey everyone, it's the Crypto Dealer here and welcome back to another video. Now last video I discussed how to pick out decent low cap coins, and today I'm going to go over ways to pick out and trade mid cap coins. Now mid caps are probably the coins with the most potential for the future, and as a result the ones for the most profit potential. It's a pretty big area, so I'm thinking about splitting this into two videos. Now I thought I'd just start off the video by going over some of the general parameters of mid cap coins. It's really handy to bear these in mind as they're pretty handy in any of the possible trading strategies I'm gonna talk about. Now let's just start off with a definition of a mid cap. And the way I class that is any coin between a $5 and $100 million market cap. Now in recent times, because of the huge rise of cryptocurrencies, I'd say that the ceiling of this range is kind of increased a bit, as you're seeing a lot of coins with a lot higher market cap value but still perform the same way in the market. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that mid cap these days is currently anything from 5 million to 500 million, and obviously there's a huge variety of potential coins and industries and technologies in this area. As I said before in the last video, most people judge things off market caps, so it helps to also judge things by market caps. Now the fundamental difference I think between a mid cap and a low cap is that a mid cap often has released or will release a really innovative product. These days I'd say that speculation is pretty high on most coins, which inflates the market cap as people try to enter the market. So generally it's a good sign if a coin has a higher market cap, because it means it shows a lot of promise or has delivered on those promises. They often as a result have better liquidity in the markets, which means you can buy more and sell more for a near average price. On some low cap coins it's near on impossible to exit a coin. Now not to say that low caps don't have this, but mid caps pretty much all have a market maker or a group of people who are controlling the price. I think it's pretty important for a coin to have a market maker, as it means that someone has a high stake in the market and will help to maintain it. And generally it also means that you can do some basic TA on the market. When trading mid caps, I keep your TA to pretty simple rules and techniques, because with most of them, although there is liquidity, there isn't often enough interest or liquidity to play out certain patterns to a T. So the main things I'd use if I was trying to do any TA on a mid cap is support and resistance, Bollinger Bands, and sometimes you can get away with a MACD on a larger time frame. I wouldn't monitor a mid cap coin on anything lower than a 30-minute chart frame unless in that moment it's having a very big price move, because often you get irrational buyers who throw off the small term picture, but often a market maker or general common sense will prevail in the long term. Now I'd say there's 4 schools of thought when trying to trade mid-cap coins, and hopefully explain the pros and cons of both. All the strategies can be pretty profitable, but they often depend on your skill level and also the amount of time you can give to it. But I'd say that all the strategies are pretty interchangeable, and you could use one for one coin and one for another depending on what's happening and what's the situation with it. So hopefully, you know, you might pick up something that you haven't already tried or weren't aware was a possible strategy. So if you do learn something, it'd be great if you could leave a wee thumbs up on the video. Okay, so the first strategy I'm going to talk about is the news trader. Now I'd say this requires a medium amount of time, but can actually be pretty quick once you've kind of got the ropes and know your ways to do things. It doesn't require a huge amount of skill unless you're figuring out when to sell the coin, but even then, you know, if it's in profit, then profit's profit. So being a news trader involves researching all the various coins and seeing if they have any upcoming releases or launches or news. Now the key motto for this trading strategy is buy the rumour, sell the news. So the goal is to buy in as early as possible before the news, and then to sell around about or just before the launch. It's a pretty typical strategy for people to dump once the news is released, as there's a lot of buying activity, and it means that selling doesn't crash the market too much. And generally with any market, if you're the first to the post, then you have the most potential to make the most profit. Now there's a few different ways to go about this. On a really basic level, the first way would be to follow the project Twitter accounts or make a list of them. You'll see here that I'm on the page of Zcoin. Now you'll notice in their pinned tweet that 10 hours ago they just released side nodes, which are basically just master nodes, but they're one of the first for this type of anonymous coin. So what I'd recommend doing with the coins you're interested in is following them, and also get yourself some mobile notifications here. So when they tweet, you'll get a notification on your phone, and you could potentially get ahead of the game in some news or an update. Let's just look at the market and maybe to see how it reacted today upon the news. So in the last day or so, the price is up 33%, but if you look around the time that they announced the master nodes, you'll see that there was quite a lot of activity, and also you could buy it for nearly about half the price. So that's really the benefits of news trading, is spotting some opportunities as quickly as possible, getting involved, and then selling upon the news. It's a pretty surefire way of making some profit, but you also have to be aware that if the updates are delayed or cancelled, there's going to be a bit of a backlash in the market, which could leave you open to risk. Another few ways to find out about news or potential upcoming news is to subscribe to newsletters. So one of the more popular subscriptions that people often have is the list one. It's actually one of the few that I'm subscribed to. Here we go, the newsletter at the bottom. So what you do is just put your email address in and then subscribe. Here we go, so this is what their updates would look like. So they recently recruited more team members, they were featured in a few conferences. Here's a community update. So if you're a news-based trader, then newsletters and updates like this can be really handy, as there is often glimmers of updates before they actually announce them. They'll often just talk about what they've been up to. The December updates here are a little vague and not very descriptive, but you know, in the past they've given a bit more promise. Another way to either communicate with the developers or see like smaller non-major updates or perhaps glimpses is to join either Coin Slack or Telegram room. Now, if they do have one, they'll often be one of the first things on the website or in the Twitter links. But obviously there'll be a lot of like discussions and stuff in these groups, so they're maybe not the best if you don't have time to fill out news and stuff. But equally they could be handy if you just check and see what other people are talking about. The same kind of goes for forums such as Bitcoin Talk. There'll be a lot of comments and discussion rather than news based and stuff, but again, it's good to see what people have to say about the coin. Okay, the third one is a day trader. Ideally, to be a day trader, you have to have quite a lot of time and quite a lot of skill too, because you're trading the waves in the market. The motto for this strategy is buy low and sell high. The goal is for you to buy at as low a price as possible, either on the day or whenever you see an opportunity to buy low, and then from then on you're looking for an opportunity to sell high at the most realistic maximum price. Okay, so here's a chart for the coin ADA, and since early December there's been loads of opportunities here to buy low and sell high, so I'm going to mark them out here for you. So the first obviously was here, and realistically here, although here is where you could have definitely sold high, and here was a place you could have bought low, and around here or here, if you missed it, was another place you could have sold for high, and here also is a really good place where you could have bought for low. You could have sold high, and if you were very active you could have bought around here again before maybe considering selling here. It just depends on what the coin's actually up to. You don't have to get every move perfect or whatever, but there are ways to identify them You want to be monitoring this on maybe an hour time frame, just so that you get to see the bigger picture as well as the short term picture. First would probably be support and resistance lines, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. But so here you can see an interesting one. This was like a previous resistance point, and later on we hit a support line. This would be a line that I would be considering buying when it reached there. Even if I missed all this part or whatever, I'd be considering buying here for definite. Another line that might be worthwhile in this move is here, because obviously we tried to breach it in the past but still not managed to break it as of the time of recording this. So it might be an idea to consider selling here or monitoring the situation. Here also it's not as clear a line, but you have a place where there was support, and then when it was broken here turned into resistance here. So you start to be able to build up a bit of a picture of the areas to watch and see how it behaves around there. Another thing I consider using is Bollinger Bands. Bollinger Bands I find are handy for two things. The first is that when something is in the middle of pumping, if it starts to go outside of these lines, that's when you know that potentially it's run out of steam. So as you can see here, when this candle was all the way up here at 1700 sats, it was way outside of the blue lines, which meant it was overbought, and as a result it came crashing down pretty quick after that. This is also an important area here because it meant that it was oversold because it's outside of the lines equally when on the sell side. And also not so much in this current situation, but here you'll notice how tight together they got. That means generally that potentially something big's gonna happen at some point. Another thing to consider is MACD. Here we go. So MACD is basically charting kind of, in a sense, momentum. So you'll see that here when it peaked and it crossed over at this point here, that would be a point where you consider selling, because after that the price declined nearly 25%. And here, when the price didn't actually cross over but actually bounced off the line, continued to go up higher. There are little elements from each of them that with experience you'll start to identify what certain things mean. Obviously this is pretty basic TA, you know, you can go into a lot more and use other things, but I find that when you're trading altcoins it's best to keep it simple, especially the mid caps, because they don't always fulfill more complicated moves or ideas that you might have. Something you can also do is build up positions with day trading. You might have, like, say you had 10,000 of a coin, okay, and you had 5,000 as a buy, but you bought and sold at the highs and lows with the other 5,000 and tried to either build it up or reduce your break-even price, which can be handy if you want to reduce your risk in the market, especially if you think that in the future the price might go down a little bit and you want to minimize your risk exposure. That's the end of part one of this. Part two, I'm gonna talk a bit more about some of the other strategies and also give some general hints and tips. Remember to like and subscribe the video, and if you could follow me on Twitter, that would be pretty cool. Part two should come up pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks for all the support I received recently, because I recently hit 50 subscribers from scratch within 2 weeks, so a big thank you to everyone who subscribed and watched and gave feedback. So I'll see you next time.